Hey guys, welcome back. I hope that you're doing well. A little bit of housekeeping before we jump into the actual substance of today's episode. As I'm sure you've noticed, I have renamed the Miracle Minds podcast into the Crown of Lilies podcast. And this was to match the Substack that I started, the Crown of Lilies. I will have that linked below if you're interested. The tagline that I used for the Crown of Lilies Substack is a spiritual warrior's refusal to hate. And the inspiration for that was man, I feel like our collective is hell-bent on tempting us into hating one another. I've talked about this a couple of times on my other YouTube channel that it just feels like every time I wake up, around every corner, there is a never-ending onslaught of temptation for me to hate somebody, to view somebody as an unclean other, as the bad guy, as someone that I'm meant to stand and fight against. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I've recently come back to the Course in Miracles. Obviously, the other bit of housekeeping is it's been a couple months since I've filmed the last episode. That was not my intention when I started this podcast. Obviously, my intention was to, mostly through discipline, but also just in feeling drawn to the Course in Miracles itself, my intention was to keep showing up with this podcast. What happened in reality is that I can be a little bit of a difficult student. I get a little combative. I tend to fight back. Or if I could defend myself for a moment, have spirited debates with A Course in Miracles. Sometimes I'll read something, and if I'm not fully on board, I'm gonna push back a little bit. I think my guides have grown accustomed to this. I can usually hear them kind of chuckling as I'm reflecting on this. I can be quite a difficult student. They love me nonetheless. But anyway, point being, in those moments of questioning the Course, in pushing back in areas that I didn't fully agree in, I tended to adopt an all or nothing mentality where if there was even a sentence that didn't quite sit right with me, or that I had questions about that I didn't understand, it would prompt me to just throw all of it away. Not literally. I kept the physical text, but I would put it back on the shelf. And I think something like A Course in Miracles in particular is something that is meant to be worked with slowly. So I don't necessarily, although I'm joking about being a difficult student, and there's truth in that, I do think working with it slowly and not forcing things is ultimately the best way to interact with it. So I don't necessarily know that I had done anything wrong. In fact, I feel quite sure that I hadn't done anything wrong. But given the fact that I live in a world where the word forgiveness seems dirty, seems like if I want to pursue forgiveness, if I want to hold forgiveness in my heart, I've done something wrong. We have a lot of performative examples of forgiveness, a lot of people using the words "I forgive" to sort of posture and pretend that they're better than others. But we don't really have a lot of representation of actual forgiveness in our culture. And it feels like when you pursue that, you're demonized. And actually, if we look back towards history, first of all, that tracks with the story of Jesus, who was literally killed for telling people to love each other. Controversial. So that tracks. And also, I'm often even given this by the Morrigan quite frequently, that it's never the easy thing. The truth, the answer, the awakening, it's never the easy thing. And the one thing, I guess, that has stayed consistent for me in my spiritual practice throughout my lifetime is that despite every mistake that I make, and despite the fact that I still have so far to go, and I'm very much well aware of that, orienting myself towards a sort of North Star of aiming higher, aiming higher, aiming higher, keep going, aiming higher, like that has been my guiding principle lately. And so I find myself back in working with A Course in Miracles. It was actually the Morrigan that recommended I pick it back up. And I guess I can briefly tell that story since it's been so long since we've gotten together. Like I said, I was fighting back with A Course in Miracles. I was getting a little snippy, getting a little combative. And I got to a point where I was like, look, I know my guides want me to work with this material. Okay. It couldn't be more clear. I've been given synchronicity after synchronicity after synchronicity. Yet here I am having a hard time with it. One would think, this is so naive. One would think if I was supposed to work with it, I would open it up and it would come easy to me, right? It would feel perfectly right. I would have no questions. I wouldn't struggle with it. This is the most type A. If I don't get it immediately, that means it's not aligning, right? That means it's not synchronizing for me, right? And yeah, okay. So anyway, I finally got to a spot where I was like, look, I know I'm meant to work with this. Why am I struggling with it so much? Let me straight up ask the Morrigan, right? Because if one of my guides is going to confirm what I've been saying, and I guess to summarize, the issue I've been having with A Course in Miracles is sometimes, well, the version of it that I was using, because I did switch versions and I'll touch on that in a sec, but the version that I was using sometimes felt like it was trying to gaslight me out of my own experience. And that very much made me feel like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is in alignment with my concept of sovereignty, right? It's trying to convince me that the thing that I'm thinking isn't actually the thing that I'm thinking. And of course, when you take a step back, it's the ego mind, right? But nevertheless, I was having those experiences of feeling like this wasn't in alignment with sovereignty. And so I thought to myself, if there's a guide that I work with that is going to confirm what I'm saying, that is going to tell me, Sarah, you are 100% right. The Course in Miracles is a violation of sovereignty. You can get rid of it. You don't have to work with it. You're off the hook. It would be the Morrigan, right? It would be the Morrigan. And so, or at the very least, maybe she would say, if you don't want to, you don't have to. Okay, so I sit before her, humbly, open, very much willing, by the way, to be wrong, very much willing to be given a contradictory answer. And I pulled some cards. One of the best ways to get an unbiased answer is to pull cards, by the way, because you will get the answer and it will be not what you wanted to hear. And what card did I get, friends? Well, I got a card from the Archetypes deck. That is the Masquerari. I think I'm pronouncing that right. The idea here, the subtext on the card says projection. Very Morrigan, because my next question was, so am I projecting, or is the Course in Miracles a projection? And then I sat with that for about a quarter of a second longer, and I realized, well, it's never the easy thing, is it? Yeah, I was projecting onto the Course. Okay. Now, again, I still think asking questions is good because you don't want to go in the opposite direction of doing what something or someone says without asking questions, without honoring any pushback that comes up, just sort of forcing yourself to go all guns ablazing, keep going even if it's uncomfortable, that type of thing. There's a balance to be struck here. But I think anyone that knows me would confirm this, I fall on the side of cynicism and skepticism. You want me to go where? You want me to do what? I don't know about that. I'm very skeptical. And so knowing this about myself does help me move the needle in a better direction or move things back to center, because I'm certainly not someone that falls on the side of being naive. If I was, my advice to myself would be different, but I am definitely more cynical than I am naive. So thank you to the Morrigan for reminding me about projections. Again, still wasn't quite fully ready to get back with the Course. So this is where, and this is, I think the Course would recommend this, and I love this so much. Prayed to the Holy Spirit. Okay. I said, all right, listen, I know you guys want me to study this. I'm struggling with it. I know the Morrigan has reminded me about projections. I understand that, but still something is not quite right. And so I prayed about it. And a couple days later, I stumbled across a different version of A Course in Miracles. Now, I had been working with the traditional one, the Blue Book one, and I came across a version by the Course in Miracles Society. And it's A Course in Miracles. It says original edition on it. When I found this edition, I sort of uncovered a very long and complicated history of the publishing of A Course in Miracles. And to summarize, because I don't even know if I fully understand all of it, to be completely honest with you, but to summarize, apparently there's a lot of different versions. And apparently the version I had been using, the blue one from A Course in Miracles, no, not the Miracle Society. Let me grab the old one. The old one that I had been using is from the Foundation for Inner Peace. And apparently, and it sounds like, and I've gotten this from multiple sources, the Foundation for Inner Peace version, the blue version, is more heavily edited. And by contrast, the Course in Miracles Society version, as well as the Sparkly edition, that's a really cute name. I don't know why it's called the Sparkly edition, but okay, that's adorable. And there's another one whose name is escaping me right now. I'll try and link it in the description box. But apparently, the one that I'm working with now, the one with the pearls on the front cover from the Course in Miracles Society, the original edition, this one is supposed to be much more faithful to the original channelings, the original notes of Helen Schuckman and William Thetford, who were the original authors. The immediate difference, I can tell you, is that the version I have now and the version that I'm going to be using for the remainder of this podcast, that feeling like it's trying to gaslight me or it's trying to convince me, I don't have that anymore. I don't feel that anymore. It definitely still challenges the ego mind, right? And there will be times where my ego mind is uncomfortable with the material, but the tone of it, the language of it, it feels much less like, when someone's trying to convince you of something versus when someone's just sharing a perspective and the kind of different energy that is brought to the table. Again, still challenging, the Course in Miracles is radical, okay? As I said in the beginning, in the intro of this, to live a life rooted in forgiveness is radical. You will piss people off. It's crazy to think that, but it is revolutionary, especially in Jesus's time, but also in our time right now. And I think that's why I was brought to this and why I feel so called to it again. It is very radical material, but again, the tone of this version, I find myself arguing with it less. So for what it's worth, if you've tried A Course in Miracles and you're not quite into it or feeling something similar to what I was feeling, try the different versions, because I am liking this one quite a bit more. So for today's episode, I'm going to be reading from chapter 11, God's Plan for Salvation. And specifically, I'm looking at subsection 2, which is the judgment of the Holy Spirit. And I'm going to read from the text. I think you guys will also prefer listening to me read this version of it. It's a lot less like thou, for, thereout in so much as, and it's much more like plain English. There's still some sentences where I have to read it 3 or 4 times and go like, wait, what did you say? But for the most part, we have much more straightforward language. So I think you guys will also prefer listening to me read this. So I'll go through it and just kind of give my 2 cents along the way. The judgment of the Holy Spirit. There is but one interpretation of all motivation that makes any sense. And because it's the Holy Spirit's judgment, it requires no effort at all on your part. Every loving thought is true. Everything else is an appeal for healing and help. That is what it is, regardless of the form it takes. Can anyone be justified in responding with anger to a plea for help? No response can be appropriate except the willingness to give it to him, for this and only this is what he's asking for. Offer him anything else, and you are assuming the right to attack his reality by interpreting it as you see fit. Okay, real quick. Every loving thought is true. Everything else is an appeal for healing and help. This, when I tell you, I chose this one, by the way. I know in previous episodes I had been asking the Holy Spirit which one he wanted me to share, but I chose this one because with everything going on in our world, and I know we're undergoing a collective awakening. I know this is part of the process. Cognitively, I get it, but emotionally, I'm struggling. I shared this on my other channel. I've been grieving the collective dark night of the soul in a very extreme way. Like my body has felt heavy, really heavy. And I've asked over and over again, like, what am I supposed to do? And I've asked every guide. I've asked the Morrigan. I've asked Archangel Michael. I've asked Jesus. And this is why I think ultimately they've brought me back to this text, because I read these two sentences. Every loving thought is true, period. First of all, perfectly worded, simple, to the point. Every loving thought is true. Everything else is an appeal for healing and help. That is the instruction for our time. Easier said than done. We tend to be very reactive. There's so many things. Me and my husband were just talking about rage bait earlier today. You are tempted, you are baited into hatred left and right. That's why I titled The Crown of Lily's Substack, A Spiritual Warrior's Refusal to Hate. Because that also, by the way, that is what it means to be a spiritual warrior, is to refuse to hate, to refuse that temptation. Every loving thought is true. Everything else is an appeal for healing and help. There's also something, like if you feel into that in your soul, right? And especially through the connection with the inner child, there is something about that direction and what to do, right? When you are looking at something that is not loving, when you are looking at the reality of thought made manifest, thought that is not love, thought that is fear, that ultimately means that person is asking for healing and help. What that would then lead you to do, that is the right thing. There is something about that feels like nourishment for the soul. Like you hear that and there's no part of you that goes, well, I don't know about that. Now, again, easier said than done. We're provoked into anger all the time and we fail constantly, right? That's why the Course is always telling us that we need to ask for help. But when you see that wisdom displayed by somebody else, when somebody else accurately interprets a non-loving thought as a call for help and they show up in that way, we recognize that as wisdom. We never see someone acting from a place of love and think that they lack wisdom. It's always the opposite. And I feel like that knowing, like that is resonance, right? We're called to something higher and it's difficult, like it's not easy, but it feels right. And it may not serve the ego because the ego may scream for retribution, but we know that that's not wise. No response can be appropriate except the willingness to give it to him. For this and only this is what he's asking for. Offer him anything else, and you are assuming the right to attack his reality by interpreting it as you see fit. Perhaps the danger of this to your own mind is not yet fully apparent to you, but this by no means signifies that it's not perfectly clear. If you maintain that an appeal for help is something else, you will react to something else, and your response will be inappropriate to reality, as it is, but not to your perception of it. This is poor reality testing by definition. There is nothing to prevent you from recognizing all calls for help as exactly what they are, except your own perceived need to attack. The need to attack, the ego's need to attack, the desire to attack, is something the Course talks about a lot. And I don't know a better way to describe the feeling that I feel when I read it other than to just say yes. I highlight it every single time the Course talks about the ego's need to attack. I highlight it because I feel personally called out. And I can see it so clearly. That voice in your head that tells you that it's not, you can't be nice. You can't forgive. It's an insane voice. And I think one of the blessings of the time that we are living through right now is we are getting to see the consequences of listening to that insane voice. As the Course says, perhaps the danger of this, believing the ego essentially, to your own mind is not yet fully apparent. But isn't it though? At this point, isn't it though? Don't we have countless examples out there in the collective of what happens when we listen to the ego mind? What happens to us, what we turn into when we relent, when we give in to the ego's perceived need to attack? We have like an endless amount of motivation to not listen to this voice anymore. There is nothing to prevent you from recognizing all calls for help as exactly what they are, except your own perceived need to attack. It is only this that makes you willing to engage in endless battles with reality, in which you deny the reality of the need for healing by making it unreal. You would not do this except for your unwillingness to perceive reality, which you withhold from yourself. It is surely good advice to tell you not to judge what you do not understand. No one with a personal investment is a reliable witness, for truth to him has become what he wants it to be. I highlighted this as well. You can tell I've highlighted something when you can hear me smile and laugh to myself as I read it, because I feel personally called out. But also, this sentence, no one with a personal investment is a reliable witness, for truth to him has become what he wants it to be. We know this, scientifically. We know, and again, talk about synchronicity. I was just talking to my husband about this today. We know when we identify with something, with a group, with a cause, our brains protect us from seeing the truth. We will believe lie after lie after lie after lie to protect our own sense of identity. I'm sorry, the ego mind will do that. No one with a personal investment is a reliable witness, for truth to him has become what he wants it to be. If you're unwilling to perceive an appeal for help as what it is because you're unwilling to give help and to receive it. The analysis of the ego's real motivation is the modern equivalent of the Inquisition. For in both, a brother's errors are uncovered, and he is then attacked for his own good. What can this be but projection? For his errors lay in the mind of his interpreters, for which they punished him. It's easy. We can see this in other people, right? Taking, again, the Inquisition for an example. In both, a brother's errors are uncovered, and he's then attacked, quote, for his own good. But yet, when our own ego mind tempts us, no. That was only bad because they were wrong. I'm right. My judgments are right. So it's totally fine. Yet, then this part has always driven me crazy about history and psychology. Everyone thinks they're the good guy because everyone's ego is trying to convince them that they're right. And you don't know what you don't know. It can be kind of terrifying if you really think about it, what our ego minds, rather, will have us out here believing and justifying. What can this be but projection? For his errors lie in the minds of his interpreters, for which they punish him. Whenever you fail to recognize a call for help, you are refusing help. Would you maintain that you do not need it? Yet this is what you are maintaining when you refuse to recognize a brother's appeal, for only by answering his appeal can you be helped. Deny him your help, and you will not perceive God's answer to you. The Holy Spirit does not need your help in interpreting motivation, but you do need his. Only appreciation is an appropriate response to your brother. Gratitude is due him for both his loving thoughts and his appeals for help, for both are capable of bringing love into your awareness if you perceive them truly, and all your sense of strain comes from your attempts not to do this. How simple, then, is God's plan for salvation? There is but one response to reality, for reality evokes no conflict at all. There is but one teacher of reality who understands what it is. He does not change his mind about reality because reality does not change. Although your interpretations of reality are meaningless in your divided state, his remains consistently true. He gives them to you because they are for you. Do not attempt to help a brother in your way, for you cannot help yourself. But hear his call for the help of God, and you will recognize your own need for the Father. The other thing I love about the Course is that it's you teach by doing, right? And you gain forgiveness by forgiving. You awaken by extending love. You are loved. And so in this paragraph, the Course is talking about how we receive help through helping others. And this is also really interesting because psychologically, again, I think we know this. It feels really good to help somebody. If you look at, especially the state of the world, and we see so many examples of things that lack love, of attitudes, words, actions that lack love. When we fight those with fear, it does not feel good. There is something deep down inside of us that feels like we're doing things the wrong way. It does not feel aligned. By contrast, viewing what's happening through the lens of love and seeing those acts of fear as a call for help, that is moving. That is something that, speaking for myself, I can stand behind 100%. Now, it's difficult, it's challenging to actually do that, right? But the idea of it, the principle of it, aspiring towards something higher, that I can stand behind. Hear his call for the help of God, and you will recognize your own need for the Father. Your interpretations of your brother's need is your interpretation of yours. By giving help, you're asking for it. And if you perceive but this one need in yourself, you will be healed. Let me read that one more time, because this is the key to awakening. Look, it's not easy, but it is simple. It is straightforward. There have been so many times, you embark upon a spiritual awakening path and you're like, okay, but how do I do this? When am I awakened, right? And there's a lot of different answers to that question. I feel like the Eastern philosophies would probably remind you that in searching for the awakening, you can't be awakened. By searching for it, you therefore cannot be it, because you must already view yourself as it, but then also the ego will try and tempt you into thinking that you're already awakened and blah, blah, blah. It becomes convoluted, right? It becomes this, okay, wait, what? What do I do? What's the thing that I do? By giving help, you're asking for it. And if you perceive but this one need in yourself, you will be healed. We need help. We're asleep. And we need help. Luckily, we have the help. And I should also say, sometimes my cynicism alarm starts going off. And it's what do you mean I don't know what I'm doing? Yes, I know what I'm doing. Who is someone else going to tell me what to do then? But all of this is happening inside of you. The thing that the Course is asking you to surrender to, the thing that the Course is asking you is telling you you don't know and you need help. It's all happening inside of you. There's not another person that's giving you the answers. Both of the authors of the Course in Miracles are dead. The author and the editor, they're dead. So they're not the ones telling you, right? They have no skin in the game. The societies that publish this, I don't know how much, financial money. Again, this is my cynicism coming out, follow the money, who's making money from this? And is that why you want me to believe this? But it doesn't seem that they're not a giant mega church. It's just not there. And ultimately, when you apply the teachings from the Course to your life, it's all happening inside of you. So the Course is saying, essentially with this sentence, we need help. You need help, and you need to ask for it. And if you can admit that to yourself, that's the one thing you have to admit, and then you will be healed. By giving help, you are asking for it. And if you perceive but this one need in yourself, you will be healed. For you will recognize God's answer as you want it to be. And if you want it in truth, it will be truly yours. Every appeal you answer in the name of Christ brings the remembrance of your Father closer to your awareness. For the sake of your need, then, hear every call for help as what it is, so God can answer you. This idea of seeing, again, going back to the first sentence here, every loving thought is true. Everything else is an appeal for healing and help. So when we see something that lacks love, the Holy Spirit reinterprets this for us as a need for love. Reinterpreting it that way isn't to be like a nice person. It's not for the other person's benefit solely. I mean, they will also benefit from that, because don't we all want to live in that world anyway? But that's not, the Course clarifies, for the sake of your need, then, hear every call for help as what it is, so God can answer you. It is by perceiving a lack of love as a call for love and refusing the temptation for attack thoughts that we are then given the truth, the answer. It is then that God answers us and we can see. By applying the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the reactions of others more and more consistently, you will gain an increasing awareness that His criteria are equally applicable to you. For to recognize fear is not enough. One more time. To recognize fear is not enough to escape from it, although the recognition is necessary to demonstrate the need for escape. The Holy Spirit must still translate it into truth. If you were left with the fear, having recognized it, you would have taken a step away from reality, not towards it. Yet we've repeatedly emphasized the need to recognize fear and face it without disguise as a crucial step in the undoing of the ego. Consider how well the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the motives of others will serve you then. I love this sentence. Also, I hope you guys are realizing the difference in the language. Sometimes it can be difficult if you're not comparing the old version to this one, but it's just so much more straightforward. I've already highlighted like triple the amount of things I would have highlighted in the other version. I want to read that sentence one more time, or that section one more time. For to recognize fear is not enough to escape from it, although the recognition is necessary to demonstrate the need for escape. The Holy Spirit must still translate it into truth. If you were left with the fear, having recognized it, you would have taken a step away from reality, not towards it. Yet we've repeatedly emphasized the need to recognize fear and face it without disguise as a crucial step in the undoing of the ego. Consider how well the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the motives of others will serve you then. Having taught you to accept only loving thoughts in others and to regard everything else as an appeal for help, He has taught you that fear is an appeal for help. That is what recognizing it really means. If you do not protect it, He will reinterpret it. That is the ultimate value to you in learning to perceive attack as a call for love. We've learned surely that fear and attack are inevitably associated. If only attack produces fear, and if you see attack as the call for help that it is, the unreality of fear must dawn upon you. For fear is a call for love in unconscious recognition of what has been denied. And this is where it's kind of getting at, we say there's only fear in love, there's only fear in love, but the fear is an illusion. There is only love. Like in a very literal sense. There is only God. God being love. And of course, and I know I've said this before, and I'm sure you already know, the word love is not like what our society defines love as. The word love in English is like, it's just not good enough. There are other languages in the world that have different words for God, and they're just more, they describe it better. But the best we got is love, okay? English is what it is. The best we have is love. That's all there is. Because Fear is a call for love in unconscious recognition of what has been denied. So when someone or when we think a fear-based thought, we're just denying reality. We're just denying what is. It's a denial of love, a call for love. There is only love. I want to go back to how I started and reread the two sentences that I think in such a simple and straightforward way, difficult to apply, but simple and straightforward, this is the instructions for our time. If you're not sure what to do, if you don't know how to act or react to what's happening in the world, these two sentences provide so much clarity. Every loving thought is true. Everything else is an appeal for healing and help. So when you see something that's not love, that's your call to action, to bring love, to bring help. That's what it means to be a miracle worker. And according to the Course, it's also what it means to be a light worker, if you prefer that terminology. That's also just kind of like what we're doing here. Like, that's the calling. That's the mission of our time. When you see something that isn't love, you're being called to action. And that action is not to attack. That action is not to meet fear with fear. That action is to be the beacon of light, to be the source of love in a broken world. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it here. It's like 7:30 at night, so we're getting close to my bedtime. But I will leave it here for this week. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below what you think. If you noticed a difference in the language of this version, it's hard if you're not like reading them right next to each other, but this one just feels, I like this one better. So we're using this one from now on. Again, this is the Course in Miracles Society version. It's the version with it's the black cover with the little pearls on it. It's really cute, little pearls of wisdom. I love it. And I'll have it linked below if you'd like to get a copy. Yeah, other than that, I will leave it here for this week. Thank you guys for being here. I will see you in the next episode.